So I put out this post on Twitter, or X now, and the responses were quite interesting. Credit cards are designed to make spending easier. Globally, they power trillions of dollars in transactions. In fact, credit cards account for nearly $30 billion of annual expenditure in restaurants in the US alone. But in Nigeria, the story is pretty much the opposite. For context, these were two of the comments under the post. By T-Boy Square, we have a credit card, and by Olisaemeka, Nigerian banks have credit cards? ? And interestingly, all the other comments confirm that yes, we in fact do have credit cards. Credit cards have simply never really taken off despite big brand launches, global partnerships. This service and all the benefits that it has promised, they've not really been enticing enough to become a household tool to use in Nigeria. So why? In this video, we've looked into the existence of credit cards in Nigeria and everything you need to know about them. Without further ado, here's the truth about credit cards in Nigeria. For most people in this part of the world, the only concept of a card payment that we are used to is a debit card. Well, not the only one, but the main one. Basically, with debit cards, the money you spend is directly taken from your account balance. With credit cards, you get what is on paper a much better deal. Simply put, a credit card allows you to spend money that you do not really have, but there is a catch. While credit cards allow you to pretty much spend at will, you're expected to pay back later, either in full or through a monthly payment system set up by your bank or the issuer of the card. Oh, and there's also usually the spending limit set for a card depending on the bank and the type of card. At the end of each month, in the same way that some banks send you your monthly bank statement, you also get a credit card statement that details all your spending as well as the minimum amount you're expected to pay for that month to keep your card active. Paying back is where things get even more interesting. If you can pay back the balance by the due date in full, you avoid any interest charges and leave to spend even more another day. However, partial payment by the agreed due date will incur interest charged on whatever is left to pay till you pay it off. As you would expect, this interest charge starts to rack up pretty quickly. The interesting part is that as long as you're able to make the minimum payment on the specific card, many issuers still allow you to spend with your credit card. So in summary, you're basically racking up even more debt on your card while also getting increased interest on the previously unpaid debt because you paid the minimum. But this is usually on the extreme end for credit card use. For most people who keep their spending and payments in check, it is usually one of the most convenient ways to spend. Now, just before we get into the unyielding relationship that Nigeria has had with credit cards, we need to do a quick rundown of all the pros and cons that exist with the use of credit cards. First off, it is convenient. The same way that debit cards made payments so much easier at inception by allowing consumers, you and I, to make payments from the comfort of our homes and not have to deal with carrying cash around, credit cards offer the same convenience with the added benefit of being on credit. Spend however much you like, wherever you are in the world, and pay back later. Which brings us to the second major benefit: emergency flexibility. Depending on your income bracket, sometimes the need for quick cash may arise or even an emergency. Credit cards offer the financial flexibility to sort out this kind of emergencies, this kind of urgent financial needs without hassles. And finally, it's the rewards and benefits. Most credit card issuers have reward programs and benefits that accrue the more you spend with your credit card. So you get from things like cashback, travel discounts, miles, gifts, and a host of other specific benefits. Some banks even have partnerships with airlines to have a joint branded card. There are also three potential cons or disadvantages of the use of credit cards. The first one, and probably the most obvious one, is that you don't necessarily have any control over the interest rates and the fees. One of the most common features of credit cards is the fees attached to them. Apart from the fees, interest rates for credit cards also tend to have a multiplier effect over months. Then there's an annual fee, late payment fee, transaction fee. Over time, these tend to become more problematic if care is not taken, which of course brings us to the topic of credit scores. A consumer's usage of their credit card heavily affects their credit score. So habits like constant late payments, maxing out your credit limits, or accumulating debt can negatively impact your credit score as well as your ability to take future loans. This is not a great place to be, especially if you may want to rely on a loan for something like starting a business. And then finally, what I think is the final boss of credit cards, the tendency to overspend. Even with cash at hand, we generally like to spend more than we can financially sustain to justify that short-term pleasure, regardless of the consequences that may follow. The chances are significantly greater when the consequences of your actions are not felt immediately, and that is what credit cards offer. In fact, it is not just speculation. In the US, where credit cards are in almost every purse, their credit card debt already crossed the $1 trillion mark as of early this year. So with all of that being said, let's bring it home. In a functioning society with a highly commercial economy and population, credit cards almost feel like a no-brainer. So what happened to them in Nigeria? In 2023, Access Bank launched Nigeria's first American Express credit cards. They launched gold and platinum cards with the same global rewards, travel perks, hotel upgrades, benefits that make them so popular. Billboards were placed, ads were hoisted, and the entire launch event was done. Stakeholders involved were very excited about this development. However, it did not take long for all that hype to die down, and that is where things started to get quite interesting. So while researching for this video, we decided to check what banks offered credit cards. And yeah, pretty much every major bank that you can think of offers credit card services. I noticed that all the different banks offer different benefits, perks, and cards. Some offer only Naira cards, some dollar cards, while others both. There are also different requirements per bank. You may want to check with your bank for which credit card you can get and what is required. There's so many options when it comes to getting a credit card for banks in Nigeria. And that is why I wonder, like, why are not many people using credit cards in Nigeria? Well, I think I have some thoughts, but before I share them, when I made a tweet, some people did send me DMs. So the first message says, I use Standard Chartered Naira based credit card backed by a fixed deposit. It worked fine for dollar transactions until they discontinued it recently after CBN allowed credit cards to start performing dollar transactions. Then I asked, what was the limit and did you need a specific amount for fixed deposits? Same thing as the fixed deposit, the standard fixed deposit in this case was the equivalent of 1 million Naira or the equivalent in dollars. So I think you said the minimum entry was 1 million. And I asked what was the interest rate. So he said the interest rate is the same as the regular fixed deposit in Nigeria. And the interest is later paid into your regular account when you choose to liquidate your fixed deposit. But he also said something. His credit card has been discontinued by Standard Chartered. So we tried to check and it seems like Standard Chartered still offers credit cards. We tried to apply for a Visa Platinum credit card and it showed that we must have a monthly income of 350k or above, be between 21 and 60 years old, and have a valid Nigerian mobile phone number. And yeah, it doesn't seem like they've gone anywhere. So the next person DM'd me and said the following. But before I go there, if you're enjoying this video, please hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 50k subscribers before the end of the year. Thank you so much. So the next person that DM'd me said they used Diamond Bank's credit card for a decade. He said, I currently have Standard Chartered credit card. And I asked him, how was your experience like? He said, with Diamond Bank, it was smooth. No interest for 25 days. They stopped using it after COVID. Standard Chartered had a larger limit, but I used it twice because I defaulted once and I got discouraged. And I still have a maximum limit of 100k. So I then asked, like, what was the general limit for Standard Chartered? And noticed that the other person I DM'd also had the same limit. The limit was 1 million Naira for free 30 days with no interest and 2 million Naira with interest. So the person said after they defaulted because of some bad business that led to some loss, sorry to this person, it went down to 100k. It is not fixed. It varies by individuals or businesses. So the limit is not fixed, but the limit varies by individuals or businesses. He said that their friend uses Access Bank. Same with Diamond Bank, Access and Diamond sort of joined. And then I told the person, do I have your permission to use this? He said, yes, completely fine. He also had a UBA credit card. And he said that UBA offered longer non-interest days. So that's 45 to 60 days. But they discarded it instantly because they were restricted to only purchases, no cash, unlike the others. Things might have changed now. So we actually checked UBA's website and you can in fact now withdraw cash from ATMs with your credit card or even from POS terminals. So pretty interesting. I didn't ask the guy about the friend who uses Access Bank. They said they've not had it for less than 5 years. He's been using the bank. He started using the credit card with the bank. He doesn't know the numbers, but he thinks Access Bank has the highest limit of 3 million Naira. And yeah, that's pretty interesting. Diamond Bank was 2% monthly after 25 days. I never defaulted. There used to be a 300 Naira charge, which was something negligible. Standard Chartered had a 4% interest rate. So those are some of the messages we got. But based on my experience and some of the trends that we've noticed with products launched here in the market, there are a few reasons that I think credit cards have not taken off or become viral in Nigeria. Let's talk about financial literacy. According to the CBN, only 38% of Nigerian adults are financially literate. Subscribe to Finance Friday channel so that you become financially literate. Now, we don't know how they gathered that data, but it's a very disturbing number, and it explains a very large part of the failure of credit cards. Between interest rates, transaction fees, repayment obligations, most people are not literate enough to keep up with all of these. Plus, it does seem like most people don't know enough about credit cards or their existence to get involved with them. I mean, you saw some of the comments. The bigger problem, however, is our culture. We have a cash culture. As enticing as the prospect of spending money regardless of the current state of your bank account is, aka getting credit cards, we have a strong cash culture in Nigeria. Credit systems, you can say, are probably not at their best, and the ones that exist are often almost predatory in their service delivery. The sour taste left in the mouths of people mean that people would rather just spend the cash that they have and hope for the best. For most people, the cons outweigh the pros, which then brings us to the topic of interest rates. Nigeria's monetary policy rate currently sits at 27.5%. This is the main rate set by the central bank that affects every other form of interest rate in the economy, which includes things like savings and loans, like credit cards. At 27.5%, it trickles down to really high interest rates on credit cards, also significantly higher than what you would get in other countries. Even in countries where the interest rates are not as high, credit card debt continues to fly high, let alone a country with high inflation and a growing poverty population. And there's also the unrelatable rewards. I think that the final nail in the coffin of credit cards in Nigeria is the market itself. As interesting as some of the benefits of credit cards sound, some of them don't just resonate with the larger population in Nigeria. Lounges, air miles, hotels, they're all cool, but most people don't belong in the upper class that can relate to these benefits. And maybe even that group, maybe they're even less likely to use credit cards because they can afford to pay for everything once instantly. So they may not even need a credit line. For the average Nigerian, the benefit of a credit card needs to come down to everyday use cases like food, petrol, bill payments before it can really fly. But what do you guys think? Did you know about credit cards in Nigeria? Have you ever used one? Leave a comment below if you have any experience, and I'll be right there chatting with you guys. If you'd like to find out though why sending money to Nigeria will soon start to get very expensive, check out this video and I'll see you guys in that video.